Hello and good afternoon. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Today we'll be looking at how Solid Edge tackles one of the biggest challenges designers face today, working within large assembly files. But first, before we get started, I wanted to give you a quick reminder that we're consistently adding new Solid Edge and NX CAD, CAM, and electrical content to our Prolim YouTube page. If you aren't already, go ahead and give us a follow on our YouTube channel so you get access to all this new content when it's dropped. So a little brief introduction about myself if this is one of your first webinars. My name is Aaron Creech and I've been with Prolim for almost 3 years now. I come with 20 years of design, engineering, end user experience, much like most of you in attendance today. And during that time, I've worked in the manufacturing, architectural, and automotive design industries. I built a strong working knowledge of most popular 3D CAD design software such as Inventor, CATIA, SolidWorks, several Autodesk products, and obviously Solid Edge. As a senior application engineer with Prolim, my day-to-day is to focus on the Solid Edge mechanical and electrical CAD design products. My career interests include generative design, additive manufacturing, and process improvement, or Kaizen. So with the latest releases of Solid Edge 2022, Siemens continues to push the boundaries of product development with exciting new capabilities such as CAD Direct, Design Configurator, Point Cloud Visualization, Accelerator Share, Convergent Hybrid Modeling, and free Solid Edge CAM Pro with every active seat of Solid Edge, just to name a few. As designs become more and more complex, the number of parts in an assembly often grows significantly. Solid Edge continues to help you quickly and easily create and manage even the largest of assemblies without the lags or crashes. Create exact representations of all components, including tubes, wires, pipes, weldments, and sheet metal, and a complete digital mock-up that allows you to focus on accurate designs and analysis. Today we're going to look at a few tools that we have inside Solid Edge to help us work much easier in those large assembly files. We'll look at how to improve your Solid Edge open and load processes of large assembly files. Large Assembly Performance Mode is another great tool in our toolbox. We'll review how Solid Edge now allows us to interact with inactive parts inside of Assembly Model to reference, select, measure, and edit while parts are inactive. Large Assembly Preview Mode is another new tool to Solid Edge that allows us to open up very large assemblies in a limited mode for quick viewing and referencing. We will also briefly look at internal components to better assist us with those large assembly performance and management. We'll have a quick Q&A after this presentation, so if you could, please hold all your questions till the end. Now let's go ahead and get into it. First, we're going to look at some of the basic large assembly management tools we have in Assembly Options menu. Let's go into Solid Edge and explore some of these options real quick. So under the Application button, we have some settings in here. So we don't have to have a model open or an assembly open to access the options. So we can just go ahead and go to Options. And we're going to look at the Assembly Open As tab. So this tab, if you're not familiar, basically controls how Solid Edge opens up any given Solid Edge part or assembly. Specifically, this tab is Assemblies. So you have a couple of quick options here, and a couple of them may be new to you, and we'll go over those here shortly. But for right now, we're just going to kind of look at small assemblies, medium assemblies, and large assemblies. So you have the ability here to create some parameters for how Solid Edge will open these specific file types and how to categorize them as such. So by default, my Solid Edge assembly, a small assembly, is anything less than 50 parts or components inside of the assembly. A medium assembly is between 50 and 100, or 50 and 1,000. Again, that's driven by your less than and greater than numbers here. A large assembly by default, or at least on my machine here, is anything with 1,000 components or more. It automatically designates it as a large assembly, analyzes that as it's opening the file, and basically determines the type of actions it's going to hold. So as you can see here, for small assemblies, we have a couple of options here. So hide all components. We want to make sure we're always showing all the components, at least as much as we can, to get that full component or that full understanding of the model. So we don't want to turn off, we don't want to hide any components when it's a small assembly. We also want to activate all the parts. Why not? If it's a small part, go ahead and just give it to full control right off the bat. We can also choose to simplify some parts. We can also simplify some sub-assemblies. But for the small assemblies, we pretty much won't do that. For medium assemblies, you can control again each one of these aspects: part activation, part simplification, and then large assemblies. So again, we don't ever want to really hide any components when a file is opening. We just want to see everything that's involved with the assembly. But we may want to open up as inactive. That way it kind of speeds up the opening process a little bit. So we're going to choose to inactivate all the parts, and we're going to use simplified parts, and we're also going to use simplified sub-assemblies if any of those simplified models exist inside of the assembly. And we'll go from there. So we'll leave that at that, and we'll go ahead and hit OK. So, and if we have I want to show another quick tool here that kind of helps us along the way. So let's say we have a part open, and I don't know, maybe this model is taking a little bit longer than it should to open up. I've got this full assembly here, this blower, and as you can see, there's quite a few parts here, but I don't want to have to go through and count all these individual parts to determine how many parts are in this model. So we have a tool here under the View tab. Inspection tab, and it's called Assembly Statistics. So go ahead and launch that command here, and now we get a real quick little summary of what all exists inside of this assembly. So we can say that total parts is 551. So based on that, we're still technically a medium size file. So it's more than 50 but less than 1,000. So this one would be designated as a medium file size. But again, if this had 1,200 models, then we can, we would know that instantly. But this is a good idea. This is a kind of a good check. If you're having a model that's opening up maybe as a medium size model, but maybe it needs to be considered a large model because of all the parts, then this is where you can kind of confirm that number. And maybe you want to shift down and say, hey, anything over 500 parts, I want to be considered a large assembly. And it also gives you a file size as well, so the total document size of the entire top-level assembly. Now let's go ahead and look at the large assembly preview mode, which was introduced with Solid Edge 2022. So I'm going to go to Browse to a new file. So quickly, you can see that as I select this file, I have a quick option here. It says Open Assembly Preview in Large Assembly. So this area is kind of new to Solid Edge 2022 as well. So I can choose at this point to turn that off if I want, or turn it on, even though I have it globally selected. And I forgot to show that. So let me cancel this real quick, and I'll go into the options one more time. And also, while we're still on this Assembly Open As tab, you can see there's a check mark here. So Open Assembly Preview for Large Assemblies. So I have that checked as a global option. So anytime that it realizes it's a large assembly, 1,000 parts or more in my case, it'll automatically open that assembly up in this preview mode. So again, even if I have it selected globally here, I'll go ahead and just hit Apply and hit OK. And I'll go back to Browse, search for my file. Large assembly. Again, I can turn it off if I know that it's not an issue and I want to just go ahead and start editing immediately and I don't want the preview mode, I can deselect it here. But for this purpose, we're going to have it selected and hit OK. And you'll see that the model will go through a quick kind of scrubbing process here as it's opening the files in the last saved state that it was in. So as we open up here, now we have a performance mode message that pops up here. So it says your assembly now exceeds the size specified to enter large assembly performance mode. And we'll discuss this in a little bit more detail in a moment. But for now, we'll go ahead and just say, yeah, we want to go ahead and turn that on again because we're trying to save some space here, and we want to really work inside of this model. So here we have a large assembly that we just pulled in here. And if I go to the Home tab, though, you may notice that it looks quite different than just opening up an assembly in a regular environment. So as you can see, it's kind of a limited controlled environment here. So we have Our large assembly performance mode turned on, so as that pop-up message came up, it recognized it as a large assembly file, so it automatically chose to turn that on for me, which is great. That's exactly what I want. And as you can see here, though, really all I have are just kind of some viewing controls. I can change the shadowing controls here, my view controls. I can do a fit, and I can do some rotating and looking at faces, but that's really about it. If I click on a part, I don't get my traditional, little steering wheel to edit the part. I don't get prompted to, hey, do you want to edit this part? So that's basically just a quick and easy way for you to open up a very large assembly file if you just want to look at it. You do have a couple of controls here, so we can go and choose to say, I don't want to show most of this stuff here. Maybe I don't want to show the piping either. Let's go ahead and turn that off for now. And maybe we just want to focus on this one subassembly here. Okay, it wants to stay there. But so we have a couple of controls that we can filter down and really get to a part. So maybe we're not quite sure exactly where the change needs to happen in this assembly. Maybe we've got a engineering change request and we need to kind of work on an area, but we're not quite sure exactly where it's at. So maybe the process would be you open up this large assembly, very large assembly, in the preview mode to kind of nail down where you want to work on. And then once you have the area that you want to work on and you have that state, you have the area kind of identified, we have this option here to go edit assembly. So there's two options here. You can just go ahead and full blown into edit assembly, which will take us right into the assembly environment, what we're used to seeing anytime we're in the assembly. But we also have this with options. So let's go ahead and look at the options real quick. And as you can see here, we have a few options here that we can modify here. So right now, assembly open as, we have select is auto select. But we can also change it to either a small or a medium or a large assembly, or we can just choose that last saved setting. So if we click last saved setting, hit OK, that's actually going to open up the model in the last state that it was saved in the edited or the full version of the mode here. Now you can see that down in the bottom left hand corner, it's going through and processing that large assembly, and just in a matter of seconds I was able to get back into that state. Now I'm back in my standard assembly environment here. So if I click on an aspect of the model, I'm prompted to start making some changes. So again, that preview mode is really beneficial when you want to open up the full-blown model and you really kind of just want to open it up quickly. Say you're on the road and maybe you have limited connectivity and you're utilizing maybe an iPad, utilizing a Surface Pro, or maybe just a laptop in the airport, and you want to open up this file and the least amount of resources on that computer as you can, just to look at it and review it. It's a great tool. Another really cool tool that was added to Solid Edge 2022 is that we now have a search field at the top of our Pathfinder. So this is really great. So again, we've got this assembly. It's really large, and there's all kinds of parts in here. And I know the part number that I want to work on, but I can't remember what subassembly it was part of. So if I just go up here to the component finder and just type in, let's see. And you can see it's automatically kind of prompting me for a predictive text here. So 506 is the part I want. There we go. So it highlights the part in the design window, activates the part in the feature tree here, and also if I scroll down, then I can then see it there. So when I chose to edit this with options, so it basically opened up this specific subassembly of the, we still don't really have all the other parts loaded in here. So let's go ahead and load all the other parts, and you'll see as I click on these, it may take a minute or so, not a minute or so roughly, to populate all those parts, maybe not even a minute, maybe 30 seconds. It's going to go through and kind of reconfigure and load those parts based on those selections. It's still showing whether I'm showing the hide it or not, but show all. There we go. So again, you know, I've got a couple of different ways that I can approach the process of opening up a large file. I can scroll, I can kind of filter down to one individual subassembly component and then open that up because I don't want to load the whole thing. Maybe I know I'm only working on one small segment of the subassembly, and that's a great ability to have to filter that down. And if I need it, you know, I don't have to close the file and then reopen it back up. I have it all here at my disposal. For when I need it, I can activate it. So as we mentioned before, we have the option to open up a large file using inactive parts. And again, a lot of times in the past, having everything inactive is great for opening a file really quickly, but really didn't give us a lot of control as far as, you know, manipulating the model. So let's talk about a new feature that's in Solid Edge 2021, I think it came out, which is the use inactive parts. So I've got this assembly open here, and as you can see, there's quite a few parts in here, and maybe this is, you know, based on where I'm at and my conditions, it maybe takes me a little bit to open it up. So I chose to select this as a large file, which opens up everything as inactive. So just to confirm that, I'm going to right-click on the top level, go ahead and inactivate the entire part just so we can confirm that everything is inactive. Now, previous to 2022, we couldn't even highlight a part inside of an inactive assembly or subassembly. Basically, it was just an image of the model. We could scroll around, we could zoom in and out, but that was really about it. We couldn't select, you know, we couldn't do pretty much anything with this thing. But as you can see now, just by default, we can just choose and highlight any of this stuff here. There's actually a new command here under Activate, which is called Locate Inactive Parts. So before I turn that on, I'll kind of just go ahead and show you the difference between the previous usage of inactive parts versus what we have today. So if I go to my View tab, and let's say I want to do a look at face. Let's see if we can do a look at face. Again, as you can see, I've got the command. I'm in the command. It's asking me to click on a face. And as you can see, nothing is selectable. I'm clicking, nothing is highlighting, nothing is really available to me to select. Likewise, if I go into the inspect tool, let's see, maybe I wanted to do a quick measurement. I want to measure from this center point or this center point. No, nothing. As you can see, I'm clicking, nothing's happening. So let's go ahead and cancel this, and let's go back into the Home tab. And I'll go ahead and do this locate inactive part. So again, turns on locate selection and editing geometry within inactive part. So again, now we have some further controls. We can go to view, we can look at the face. See that you can see that now things are starting to highlight here, so I can look at that face if I wanted to. You know, now if I want to go to the inspect tab, do a quick measurement of this face to this face, and there we have our minimum distance between 644 millimeters. So again, previous to we did not have this functionality or capability. We would have to activate all the parts that were required for referencing to enable to gather this information. So now, because we have the ability to pull it in as inactive because it's a larger part and we want to be able to work in it easily and quickly, now we have some further controls inside of that, even though it's open it up as an inactive part. Now, likewise, even though this is active, let's say this part here, maybe I want to copy this. So I'll hold in Shift, pull that out. As you can see, now I'm able to even copy inactive parts. Again, we've never been able to have this ability or functionality in the past. So again, another really cool advantage to working in very large assemblies is utilizing some of this these really cool new features. So another additional really cool tool that we have is the new multi-body assembly modeling mode that creates and edits components within a file. Internal components live within the assembly file, so no part files are created on disk. Multiple internal components can be edited together, and this works with synchronous or ordered mode for parts and sheet metal. So let's go ahead and look at this real quick. So I have a small assembly here, nothing fancy, but we're going to create, so I think most people probably are familiar with how to create parts in the context of an assembly. Pretty simple to do. But this new feature here, create internal components. So essentially this works very similar to create part in place. The only difference is that this part will live inside of the assembly. So you're not going to have to worry about managing that file externally in some database or some file library or something. Let's go ahead and do a create internal component just so we can kind of see this process. So again, it looks very similar to the create part in place. I can select what type of part I want to create. I'm going to stick with a part, and now I get to add the name. So let's just do a guide block for this part here. We need a new guide. We need a guide block as the final part of this assembly. And then we got also, where do we want to add this to? So we're going to keep it in this same assembly. But if we needed to choose it to be in another assembly, we could do that. We can also even establish the material here. So I'm just going to select an ABS plastic. And then I also want to select create internal component, edit in place. So I want to be able to edit this thing using some of this existing geometry. So I'll activate that, hit my green check mark here. And now you can see we have this internal component modeling folder here. So basically it's brought in all that information that we just selected. It's got the material brought over. The fact that we're in asynchronous, because I have mine set up to every new file is a synchronous file. Again, I can right click and transition to ordered if that's what I'm used to modeling in, but maybe the assembly was created in synchronous. Or other parts were created in synchronous. So let's go ahead and create a quick rectangle here. We'll do a rectangle by 2 points. And we get all the familiar controls and commands inside of the assembly. I want to reference, but as you can see, I've got all this internal components already, but I can reference this data as well. So let's go ahead and click to this surface here. Go to my top view. Let's rotate it around. Sorry, I don't have my space ball today. But I'm just going to create a quick sketch here, and I'm going to utilize the existing sketching geometry here. And I'm also going to utilize my new quick bar here. So if I just select on any geometry, I get this quick select pick. I'm going to select a dimension, and we'll leave that at 12. I'll go ahead and accept that. Let's say this guy wants to be 15. There we go. And I'm going to create a couple of other quick features in here. I want to create a quick circle. I'm going to go ahead and just center that in the block that I've got created here. Give it a dimension of, let's do 6 millimeters. Okay, I'll go ahead and, again, if I single click on my part, I can go in and dimension it as needed. I'll go ahead and create one more circle here on the edge. And let's say this one's 4 millimeters. And I'm going to go ahead and do a quick dimension again. On the top here, let's go ahead and just locate it at 3 millimeters. And now I want to mirror that. So again, if I just single click on the part, I get my quick pick and I'll select it. Again, it's predicting kind of based on the geometry and the selection, the most commonly used controls here. So I want to mirror. And I'll mirror it about this plane here. And now I'll go ahead and shift select both of these and do another mirror. This time I'll do it. There we go. Okay, so now I have my sketch in place. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do an extrude. And I can give it a dynamic, I want the symmetry turned off there, dynamic value, but I'm gonna click on a key point here so we can stay within the boundaries of our assembly. And then as you can see, we created the part. So now let's go ahead and create a quick boss using this inner diameter. And we're going to also select on this key point, so we're on the outside of our bracket here. And there we have our basic part there, internal component. So now we'll go ahead and just exit the modeling, the assembly modeling environment. And now you can see we've got to put some additional relationships here to put this in place. So for this part, I'm going to go ahead and use the assembly relationship assistant, and we'll make sure that we have parts currently shown active. We'll hit OK. Go ahead and select our part. green check mark. And then we're going to want to make sure that we're looking at all the types except for the connect, and we'll go ahead and hit process here. We'll see what it identifies. So it looks like we've got a planar line here, which looks fine. Maybe this mate here, this offset mate probably isn't good. So let's go ahead and deselect that. And we'll leave everything else here. So we'll go ahead and hit escape or accept. Lose it. So it looks like we've got one more relationship that we've got to establish here. So I'm going to do a path for this one. So let's go ahead and do a path relationship. Select our cylindrical surface here, and we'll select the center of this slot here. Hit a green check mark. There we go. So now that that's finished, we want to just make a quick copy of this. So if we just select it from the feature tree here, hold in Shift and so now that with that in place, we can go ahead and just click on it, and we'll make some adjustments here to the copied over relationships. And we see we've got an error here, so I'm going to go ahead and just edit the definition on this guy. And I'm going to go ahead and just replace the part element. So we'll basically just go through and select the cylindrical surface again, like we did for the first one, and select this center of this keyway, hit accept. Now we've located it right into position. Now if we go ahead and cancel this, we should be pretty much in place here. So now if I do a drag component and change the screw, we can see that we've got some movement, and it looks like it's working correctly. So again, just another quick and easy way to create some additional parts inside of the assembly. And maybe this is a runoff, maybe this is a prototype, so maybe we're not really too concerned about the finished product of this part. Maybe we just need to create a quick part in place. We don't have to worry about saving it in a specific location and considering all of the things that come along with the file management process. We can just quickly create it in the context of the assembly, and again, it's saved it under this internal component folder where all the other internal components live. And again, with references as well. So again, just a very easy and simple way to combat and help reduce the file sizes and the way stuff opens up. So lastly, we'll look at the large assembly performance mode. We briefly kind of touched on it at the beginning of the presentation. Another really cool new introduction to Solid Edge 2021 was the large assembly performance mode. This mode increases the interactive performance of displayed assemblies. When this mode is on, displaying settings such as floor reflections and auto sharpen are turned off and disabled. Some view settings that are also disabled are high quality, cast, floor, and ambient shadows, silhouettes, and depth fading. This tool can be found on the Home tab in the assembly environment. We can also configure this in the options to be whenever we open the assembly that has more than 1,000 parts, or whatever number you determine to activate this command. Or you can dynamically toggle it on and off in the display screen. So again, if we pop over to Solid Edge, again on the Home tab, it's right here. We've currently got it turned off on this specific model because it's a smaller model, but we can always turn it on and off here. You really don't see much of a difference here. Maybe if we're over here, you can see a difference. So if that's turned on versus turned off, you can see the shading and stuff is there. It looks like a little more realistic. But as you can see, zooming in and out is a little difficult with this when it's turned on. No problem at all. I've got no delay. But again, if we go into the options menu here briefly, back onto the Assembly Open As tab, this is pretty much where we've been living this entire presentation. Here's where this large assembly performance mode on and off. So again, this is your global setting. And again, you can even go above or below the large assembly and just say, hey, for every part that's got 500 components, every assembly that's got 500 components, I want this large assembly mode turned on. Again, this is a global setting here, so if we hit OK, and it also inside of the model, we can always turn that off and on as needed. So, in summary, we learned how to reduce open and load times of large assembly files by configuring the Solid Edge Assembly Open As options. Again, we saw the small, medium, and large size files and how Solid Edge opens those. We saw how we can quickly and easily open large assembly files using the new preview mode. And being able to use the locate inactive parts command really helps us use those inactive part modeling data in the assembly to our advantage, speeding up our design time. We also learned how to quickly and easily create internal components in place, helping us again reduce large file open and load times and eliminate that pesky file management tasks. And finally, we saw the very easy to use large assembly performance mode to really increase our workability inside those ever-growing large assembly files. And just a quick note here before we take questions, we are back to offering the in-person hands-on training classes at our Cincinnati campus. We also have remote accessibility for those classes for those of you that are still unable to travel. But as always, in-person is always preferred. We're also offering the following classes on a monthly basis. We have our Solid Edge MCAD, the Fundamentals, Advanced, and Ordered Specific Training. For NX CAD, we have the Essentials and the Advanced classes. And then for the NX CAM/Solid Edge CAM Pro, Fundamentals and Advanced and Turning. Again, that Solid Edge CAM Pro, if you have an active seat of Solid Edge, you also get a free version of the Solid Edge CAM Pro along with your Solid Edge seat. And finally, the Solid Edge wire and harness design product. We are still developing this training content, and we'll update our training website once it's available. My goal is still kind of later this year. And then for more information, you can contact your sales representative or to find out additional information on training schedules at our prolim.com training /training website.